Hello and welcome to Trending in the Afternoon on this fine Wednesday. I hope you're all very well. So today's episode, we're going to dive into the speech that Rachel Reeves, UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves, has just done, where she has, as predicted, done a U-turn on the cancellation or the scrapping of the winter fuel payment allowance for the upcoming winter for pensioners and elderly vulnerable people who essentially get a payment every year which helps them cover the additional cost of their heating bills through the winter months when obviously, as you can expect, you're using the heating more because it's cold. This caused a lot of backlash when they first announced that this policy was going to be scrapped, when the Labour Party has always had the persona or the illusion of a persona of being the party that cares, the party that really wants the best for you and will always look after you, whereas those pesky Tories only care about their friends when they're all one of the same. Their just rhetoric may change slightly, but the outcome is always the same. People get poorer, people get more disengaged, disenfranchised, and get forgotten, to the point that the Labour strongholds around the UK, the working class communities, essentially have no one to vote for. That's why there's been such a rise in interest for reform, which really is what this is all about. Everything that the Labour Party now do is to try and circumvent the rising interest in reform, because previously, in the two-party system, where you essentially only had to control one other party and ensure that they were unelectable to ensure that you got in. You know, you only look at who ran against the likes of Margaret Thatcher, who ran against the likes of Tony Blair, David Cameron, people that were in office for a long time. The leaders of the other parties during their reigns were unelectable, and therefore you didn't really need to do a lot in order to get into power. You just needed to be the best of a bad bunch, which is what got Keir Starmer into power in the first place. He was seen as the lesser of two evils when he's shown that he's certainly not that. Not that I'm a Conservative voter at all. However, now there's this illusion that there is another alternative, Nigel Farage and Reform, which to me is just another system-serving stooge and system-serving party who are on the page of the system when it comes down to all the major things. They may have a few opinions that might resonate with people and might go against certain system conventions, but on the really important stuff, they're on the same page. Now they've got the fear of them, and as a result, they're starting to have to at least pay lip service to certain things. So I see this, as I've said previously when it was rumbled or rumoured, if you like, that this was going to be coming out. This is a good thing. We have to take this as a victory that in the upcoming winter, people will continue to get the payments that they need, which for many of them is the difference between heating and eating, which once you get into your, what shouldn't be a decision that anybody has to make, but certainly if you get into your latter years and you have paid into this system your entire life, you've given your working years, your life to a country and paid into it in the form of taxes, then you should not be expected to have to choose between eating and heating when you really are at the end of your life and should be enjoying the fruits of your labour. That's not something that anybody should have to endure, but it unfortunately is. And even with this payment, there's a lot of people that are still struggling, unfortunately, and that is because the system is designed to be that way. It's not designed for you to prosper. But we have to take this as a victory, and I don't believe that it's an accident that this has come on the back of the backlash that I mentioned, on the back of the kicking off of people, on the back of the resistance from the traditional Labour vote and also votes for the other parties. I think the latest council elections where Labour got absolutely massacred will have been a big wake-up call. I think the by-elections, which they have lost, will have been a big wake-up call and will have at least ensured that they can't go as fast as they want to. Now, we know that the agenda will continue unless it's put a hard stop is put in front of it, or there is this kind of outrage and this kind of resistance to every aspect of it attempting to be furthered. But there's different speeds that it can go at, and the slower that they can accelerate this agenda, the more time that we have to open more minds, to encourage people to question more, and to start to actually challenge anything that comes out of the mainstream. Not just accept or believe anything by reflex action. So slowing it down is better than it going at the pace that they want it to. And with this Labour government in, and with the majority that they have, I was incredibly fearful, and still am, that the acceleration of this agenda will be to such a point now that it's very difficult to try and get out ahead of. But when you have little victories like this, that just gives you that bit of confidence, that little bit of in a sense, that little bit of confirmation that your voice and your opinion does matter. And that's incredibly important to never forget. So because they're scared of reform and because they're scared of the public perception of them, which as much as they will do what they are there to do anyway, and they will always serve the people, they have to at least pay lip service to what public opinion is. And public opinion of the Labour government and Starmer is at the absolute bottom of the gutter. Of course it is. Since they've been in power almost a year now, nobody's lives have got better. The country's got less safe. The boats are still coming across the channel. Taxes are higher. What more do you have to say? The country is not going in a direction that is better. He can stand at the dispatch box as he has just done at Prime Minister's questions and make claims about the economy is growing, this is growing, that's growing, we've done these trade deals, we've done this, that and the other. How many people walking the streets today feel safer? How many people feel the country is fairer? How many people have more money in their pocket? Is food, good quality food, cheaper than it was? Is education better? Is healthcare better? I'll leave you to answer those for yourself. That is the true measurement of whether you are being a successful leader or not some ridiculous graph which can make it look like you're doing a good job. If you have to use that kind of stuff and you have to tell people you're doing a good job at something, that invariably means you are not. Because if you are, it should be abundantly obvious. You shouldn't have to constantly tell people. That's the same principle I always used to remember as a child. My dad always used to say to me that if somebody is arrogant and they have to tell you how brilliant they are, it means they're very, very insecure. It means they need that constant confirmation that they're brilliant because they're not getting it from the outside. If you're just brilliant yourself, and you absolutely are, you don't need to tell everyone you're brilliant. It's abundantly obvious. If you're telling somebody you're doing a good job and you're stabilising the economy, you're fixing the mess, you're smashing the gangs, all those rhetorics, well, you're not. And it's abundantly obvious you're not. That's why you have to keep telling people. Very, very simple. So what I expect to see now is more chaos. And there's chaos there anyway, there has been for years, but more chaos in the sense of we have seen over the last few months with Donald Trump, something gets said, then it gets redacted, then it gets said, then it gets changed, then it gets moved, whether it be with the trade wars, whether it be with immigration, whether it be with Russia, whether it be whatever. Basically, he says something tonight and he'll wake up tomorrow morning feeling different. It's so impulsive. It seems to have no structure to it. It seems to have no plan behind it. That is quite often an illusion. There is almost always method behind the madness. Now, with this, on the surface, you're going to now see Labour starting to panic and saying this and saying that, saying this and saying that to try and counteract reform. However, you could look at it that way, and maybe there is something in that, but you could also look at it this way. Me and Rich covered this morning. If you want to go here, and you know you'll get pushed back to here, then you go there. So by overreaching to such a point that it gets public backlash, yes, you might have to concede some ground, but you're still significantly further ahead than you were had you not overreached. It never goes back to here. Very, very simple. To break down that metaphor even simpler. If you have £100 in your pocket and I said to you, I'm going to take 20. And you went, no. I'll give you 10. And I go, okay, I'll take 15. Okay, we'll meet in the middle. Yeah, take 15. You're happy with that in a way, but you're still £15 worse off than you were before I made that claim to take 20. So you're still worse off and I'm still better off. That has to be the way that we look at these things. If they're coming out saying they want to do this, they want to do that, and it's to such a point that it creates a backlash and people resist, what happens when they concede ground? Do they concede ground all the way back to where they were before they overreached? Almost certainly not. So let's take that idea and apply that to that last budget. They overreached with the winter fuel payments. They pushed people too far. They probably knew that is what was going to happen. So they've conceded ground. Okay? But national insurance still went up. Inheritance tax still went up. Higher rate tax bands still went up. Dividends allowances still went down. Corporation tax still went up. VAT is still in the gun sights. Council tax still went up. So they may have conceded some ground, but overall, they've taken a massive step forward. And that is how we need to look at these kind of announcements, these kind of situations, because they may well make it look like they are doing something for the benefit. They may well make it sound like, okay, we've listened, you know what, we went too far. Yeah, but you didn't go back to where you started, did you? You still got closer to your end goal. You'll just come back with this one a little bit later on when you think public opinion has softened. So yes, let's embrace and cherish this win. That many elderly people will now have access to what they should have always had access to. That's great. But don't for a second believe this is the end of the game. Don't for a second believe they're not going to come back round again. Because as I said, they've conceded a little bit of ground, but they're still a big step closer to the end goal they want. But they're not there yet, which means they still have a lot of steps to go to get there. And they're going to come back again and again and again if we allow them to. So until they concede the ground back to where it's actually fair, then we need to continue to resist, continue to push back, and continue to stand up. Because otherwise, they'll just keep going forward. If somebody stands forward and doesn't get any resistance, they'll just keep walking. And to the point that you actually go, oh, I can't not resist anymore. They're so far forward, it's very difficult to push them anywhere near back to where they started. We need to say no the second something happens that we don't like, the second something happens that is not fair, the second something happens that is unjust. Not once it gets to the point that we can't bear it anymore. It has to be the first point of call. No, I do not accept that. That's too far. That's taking the piss. Enough is enough. Well, thank you for tuning in with me, guys. I'll be back with you with Gareth tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock for Thursday's episode of Trending. Tune in to Gareth Ike tonight. Fascinating episode coming up. And I'll speak to you tomorrow morning. Bye for now.